paradrama tales.
We agreed from the start to split. Everything 50-50, rent, groceries, even dates. It seemed fair. But lately I've noticed she's dipping into her savings just to keep up. It made me wonder, is equal really fair? When our incomes are so different. When we first started dating, my girlfriend and I were both excited to build something together based on fairness and partnership. We agreed that everything would be split right down the middle, rent, groceries, dates, even little things like dinner or movie tickets. At the time it felt like the right approach. Splitting costs evenly seemed like the best way to ensure equality and respect in our relationship. She's a teacher passionate about her work, but earning less than I do in tech. I'm fortunate to have a higher income, but we never let that come between us. The 50-50 split was our way of standing on equal ground, a promise to treat each other as equals regardless of who made more money. It felt empowering for both of us. She didn't want to feel like she was being kept, and I didn't want to feel like I was paying for everything. For a while, it worked. We shared everything openly, and it felt balanced. We both took pride in contributing equally, and it was part of the foundation that made us strong as a couple. I thought this was the perfect example of modern love, fair, straightforward, and honest. But as time went on, things started to shift beneath the surface. I began to notice signs of strain. She wasn't just paying her share, she was dipping into her savings to keep up with the expenses. It wasn't just the big stuff, like rent. It was the little things, too. The groceries, the outings, the dates. I could tell it was wearing on her, though she rarely said so out loud. That's when I started to question whether strict 50-50 splitting was truly fair. Was it realistic to expect her to keep up financially when our incomes were so different? Was equality really about splitting costs evenly? Or was there a better way to share the load? This realization wasn't easy. It challenged our original agreement and threatened to upset the balance we had carefully built. But it also opened the door to a deeper conversation, one about fairness, independence, and what it truly means to be partners in life. Our beginnings were based on equality, but as our relationship evolved, so did our understanding of what fairness really looks like. As our relationship progressed, the financial realities we faced became impossible to ignore. While we had agreed to split everything evenly, the truth was that our incomes told very different stories. I work in tech, and my salary reflects that comfortable, steady, and more than enough to cover our shared expenses without much strain. She, on the other hand, is a dedicated teacher, passionate about her job, but earning significantly less. At first, I thought the 50-50 split was a symbol of equality, a way to show mutual respect and independence. But over time, it started to feel less like fairness and more like pressure, especially on her. I noticed subtle signs, missed opportunities to join me on outings, hesitation when the bill came, and the quiet way she'd mentioned dipping into savings just to make ends meet. The financial gap became a silent wedge between us. It's not just about dollars and cents. It's about how money affects confidence, stress levels, and even the way we relate to each other. When someone earns less but is expected to pay the same, it can lead to feelings of inadequacy or resentment, even if unspoken. I realized that splitting expenses equally only works on paper. True fairness takes into account each person's ability to contribute without sacrificing their financial security. The reality is, an equal split in expenses can be a heavy burden for the partner with a lower income, even if they're managing to keep up for a while. This isn't about who makes more or less, it's about recognizing the difference and adapting accordingly. If I'm comfortably covering my half while she's scrambling to find hers, the arrangement isn't sustainable. It creates an imbalance, even if unintentional, that can affect trust and intimacy. Money has a way of exposing underlying tensions in relationships. It challenges our ideals and forces us to confront uncomfortable truths. The financial gap between us was no longer something I could ignore. It was a call to rethink how we share our lives and our responsibilities. Acknowledging this gap was difficult but necessary. It was the first step toward finding a new way to support each other, one that truly honored fairness and partnership rather than rigid equality. As I began to notice the financial gap between us, it wasn't just the numbers that told the story. It was the subtle signs of struggle that revealed what was really going on beneath the surface. Money isn't just math. It's emotional, deeply tied to pride, independence, and security. And those things don't show up on a spreadsheet, but they're impossible to miss when you care. I saw it in the way she hesitated before agreeing to plans or outings, sometimes making excuses that didn't quite add up. I noticed how she'd avoid talking about money, changing the subject whenever it came up. Once she mentioned needing to dip into her savings again, but quickly brushed it off like it was no big deal, though I could tell it weighed on her. These weren't just financial choices, they were emotional defenses. She wanted to maintain her independence and dignity, even as the pressure to keep up with a strict 50-50 split began to erode her savings. I realized that for her, admitting financial stress wasn't just vulnerability, it felt like losing control, or worse, being seen as less equal. It was a tough realization for me. I'd been focused on fairness in theory, but I hadn't fully grasped the emotional toll it was taking on her. Money struggles often hide behind silence and smiles, but the impact is real. It can create stress, anxiety, and even resentment, quietly undermining a relationship. I also became aware that pride can make people avoid asking for help, even from those they love most. She didn't want to feel kept or dependent, and that fear made it harder to open up. I had to learn to see beyond the numbers and listen to truly understand what she was going through without judgment. Recognizing these signs was a turning point. It showed me that money is never just about money in a relationship. It's about trust, respect, and the willingness to be vulnerable together. If we couldn't talk honestly about finances and feelings, the whole foundation of our partnership risked cracking. Understanding her struggle helped me realize that fairness isn't always about equal splits. Sometimes it's about compassion and adapting to each other's realities, seeing beyond the dollars to the people behind them. After seeing the signs of her struggle, I knew I had to bring it up the tough conversation about money that I'd been avoiding. It wasn't easy. Talking about finances in a relationship can be one of the most sensitive topics, especially when it touches on feelings of independence and pride. I approached her gently, explaining that I'd been thinking about our current arrangement. I said that while splitting everything 50-50 seemed fair on paper, I was worried it wasn't realistic for us. I suggested we consider adjusting how we split expenses to be more proportional to our incomes, so it wouldn't be an equal division, but a fair one that reflected what each of us could comfortably afford. She listened quietly at first, but then her reaction caught me off guard. She said she didn't want to feel kept or like she was less independent. She wanted to be treated as an equal, and in her mind that meant sharing everything equally, even if it was hard for her. I understood where she was coming from. Nobody wants to feel like they're relying on someone else or losing their autonomy. That moment revealed the emotional complexity behind money and equality. For her, fairness wasn't just about numbers, it was about respect and dignity. I realized that suggesting a proportional split could unintentionally make her feel vulnerable or even controlled. It wasn't about control at all. It was about love and care, but I hadn't communicated it in a way that felt safe to her. We talked more about what equality really means, not just equal dollars, but equal respect and partnership. I shared my concern that the 50-50 split was pushing her to the edge financially, and that I didn't want her to sacrifice her well-being to keep up appearances. That conversation wasn't a quick fix. It opened up space for honest dialogue about money fears and expectations. It reminded me that fairness in a relationship is fluid. It requires empathy, patience, and the willingness to listen deeply. Most importantly, it taught me that true equality isn't about rigid rules or numbers. It's about understanding each other's realities and finding a way to support each other, even when it means adjusting long-held assumptions. That's the heart of partnership. When we think about equality in a relationship, it's easy to focus on simple things like splitting bills down the middle or sharing chores equally. But as I learned through my own experience, true equality goes way beyond just dividing expenses. It's about recognizing the unique circumstances each person brings and finding a balance that honors both partners. In our case, equality wasn't just about me and my girlfriend paying the same dollar amount. It was about understanding the financial gap between us and how that affected her ability to contribute without strain. Equality meant asking, how can we share fairly without one person feeling overburdened, or the other feeling like they're giving too much? Real equality is rooted in empathy and respect. It's about asking yourself, what does my partner need to feel safe, supported, and valued? For her, insisting on a strict 50-50 split made her feel pressured and financially stretched thin. For me, it wasn't about the money itself, but about her well-being and our shared happiness. Equality also means being flexible. Life changes. Jobs, expenses, goals, and relationships need to adapt. What might have worked in the beginning may no longer be fair or feasible as time goes on. Being open to revisiting financial arrangements shows a commitment to partnership and growth rather than stubbornly holding on to rigid rules. Moreover, equality means sharing power and decision-making. It's about involving each other in discussions, respecting each other's perspectives, and making choices together, whether that's budgeting, saving, or planning for the future. It's not about control, but about collaboration. I realize that equality can't be reduced to a math problem. It's an ongoing conversation, a dance of compromise, trust, and understanding. Sometimes being equal means one partner carries more temporarily with the promise that it will even out over time. Sometimes it means redefining what contribution looks like beyond just money. Ultimately, equality in a relationship is love in action. It's about honoring each other's realities and working together to build a life where both partners feel valued, supported, and truly equal, not just on paper, but in heart and spirit. One of the biggest challenges in our conversation about money wasn't just the numbers, it was the fear beneath them, the fear of dependence. For my girlfriend who values her independence fiercely, the idea of shifting away from a strict 50-50 split felt like losing control, like becoming kept or less equal in the relationship. And I couldn't blame her. That fear runs deep-rooted in both personal experiences and broader cultural expectations. Growing up, many of us are taught that financial independence is a cornerstone of adulthood, especially for women. The idea that you can stand on your own 2 feet, pay your own bills, and not rely on anyone else is often linked to dignity, respect, and self-worth. So, when the conversation turns to adjusting financial contributions based on income, it can feel like a threat to that hard-earned independence. On a personal level, admitting that you might need more support can feel vulnerable. It's not just about money, it's about trust and pride. Nobody wants to feel like they're a burden or less capable. For my girlfriend, that meant wrestling with complicated emotions, wanting to be honest about her struggles, but fearing judgment or loss of respect. Culturally, there are also entrenched ideas about what equality means in relationships. Many people view equal financial contribution as an equal partnership. Deviating from that can be misinterpreted as unfair or even controlling. It takes courage to challenge these norms and admit that sometimes fairness looks different than equality. I had to understand that her resistance wasn't about being difficult, it was about protecting her sense of self. And that meant we needed to approach this conversation with patience, empathy, and reassurance. I wanted her to know that adjusting our financial arrangement wasn't about power or control, it was about care partnership, and making sure neither of us felt overwhelmed or diminished. Ultimately, overcoming the fear of dependence requires trust that love isn't measured by who pays more, but by how we support each other through all the challenges life throws at us. It means recognizing that sometimes leaning on each other is the strongest thing you can do, and that true equality embraces both independence and interdependence. After acknowledging the fears and emotional hurdles we both faced, we knew the next step was finding a practical balance, one that honored both our realities and kept our relationship strong. Sharing finances fairly isn't always easy, but with honest communication and a willingness to adapt, it became possible. First, we sat down and laid out all our expenses together: rent, utilities, groceries, dates, and the occasional extras like vacations. Seeing everything in black and white helped us understand the full picture and what each of us was contributing. Then, instead of splitting every dollar equally, we calculated a proportional split based on our incomes. This meant I took on a larger share of the bills, reflecting my higher salary, while she contributed in a way that felt manageable and respectful to her situation. This adjustment wasn't about one of us giving in, but about meeting in the middle in a way that made sense. We also agreed to keep separate fund money accounts. Each of us receives a set amount to spend freely without needing to justify it, whether it's for hobbies, personal treats, or gifts. This preserves independence and reduces tension around personal spending. Regular check-ins became another key part of our approach. Money isn't static, and life brings changes. We committed to revisiting our budget every few months to adjust for raises, new expenses, or changes in financial goals. This ongoing conversation created transparency and kept us aligned. Importantly, we kept communication open about how we were feeling, financially and emotionally. When either of us felt stressed or uncertain, we talked it through instead of letting frustration build silently. This honesty deepened our trust and prevented resentment. Finding balance also meant respecting each other's values. For her, independence mattered deeply, So I made sure to affirm that our proportional approach wasn't about control, but support. For me, fairness was essential, so I was careful to ensure she never felt pressured or less than an equal partner. Through these practical steps, what once felt like a source of tension transformed into a foundation of teamwork. Sharing fairly is more than math. It's about empathy, respect, and commitment. And that balance gave us both peace of mind and confidence in our partnership moving forward. Money has a unique way of testing even the strongest relationships. For my girlfriend and me, navigating finances became much more than just about bills and budgets. It became a mirror reflecting our communication, trust, and values. When money is involved, emotions can run high, and it can quickly uncover underlying tensions that may have been hidden before. At first, our 50-50 split felt simple and fair, but as the financial strain appeared on her side, it forced us to confront difficult feelings, pride, insecurity, and fear. Money became a source of stress, leading to misunderstandings and moments where we both felt vulnerable. I saw how easily money issues can lead to resentment if left unspoken, or worse, if one partner feels like they're sacrificing too much without recognition. But what I learned is that money, while often seen as a source of conflict, can also be a powerful catalyst for growth. It pushed us to have deeper conversations, ones about fairness, independence, and support. It challenged us to listen better and to be more empathetic, moving beyond rigid rules to flexible solutions that worked for both of us. We realized that financial disagreements aren't just about dollars, they're about respect and partnership. When one partner feels unheard or undervalued in money matters, it can affect the entire relationship dynamic. Conversely, when money conversations happen with honesty and care, they can strengthen bonds. Money also tests patience. It asks, how far are you willing to compromise? How much trust do you have in your partner's intentions? These questions aren't easy to answer, but wrestling with them helped us build a foundation rooted in understanding rather than obligation. Ultimately, money became less of a battleground and more of a shared challenge. It reminded us that relationships require ongoing work and adaptation, especially when life changes, whether it's a new job, unexpected expenses, or shifting priorities. If there's one thing I'd share from this experience, it's this: don't let money define your relationship, but let it reveal where you can grow together. When handled with care, money issues don't have to tear you apart, they can bring you closer. At the heart of every strong relationship lies fairness, not just in money, but in how we treat and support each other. My journey with my girlfriend showed me that fairness isn't about rigid rules or equal dollar amounts. It's about compassion, understanding, and meeting each other where we are. It's love in action. We started with a simple idea, splitting everything 50-50, because it seemed equal, but true equality revealed itself to be much deeper. It meant recognizing our differences, acknowledging her struggles, and adapting to create a partnership where neither of us felt burdened or diminished. Fairness means lifting each other up, not keeping score. It means celebrating successes together and sharing challenges without judgment. When I adjusted how we shared expenses, it wasn't because I wanted to control or give less, but because I wanted us both to thrive emotionally, financially, and as a team. This experience taught me that relationships thrive when built on trust and open communication. When money became a point of tension, it forced us to talk honestly, listen deeply, and understand the fears and hopes beneath the surface. That vulnerability strengthened our connection far beyond any spreadsheet or budget. If you're facing similar struggles, remember this: fairness isn't one size fits all. It's personal. It's about what works for you and your partner, with kindness and flexibility. It's okay to revisit agreements as life changes. What matters most is that you feel seen, respected, and supported. So if you've ever felt conflicted about money in your relationship, know you're not alone. Share your story, start the conversation, and seek solutions that honor both your needs. Because when fairness guides love, it becomes a powerful force, one that nurtures, heals, and grows. Thank you for listening to our story. If this resonated with you, please subscribe and join our community, where we explore real-life relationships with honesty and heart. Let's learn together how fairness can truly be love in action.